Hey everyone, welcome. My name is Marilyn Shannon and this is SkyWire. And each and every week, my friends and I, and you're included, come together and we talk about listening in just all different kinds of perspectives. Listening to energy, listening to each other, listening to our relationships, listening, even just listening to a word and what that word might mean. And today we're going to be talking about listening our body into well-being, into power, into strength, loving our bodies. And we're going to talk about it from different perspectives because we have 6 of us in our green room, and then Sheila. Thank you, Sheila. She's in the comments, and she's going to be stirring it up there along with Elaine. So we're going to be talking about it from different perspectives because we all have different perspectives, and maybe they all lead to the same thing, but we come about it a little differently. And we want to talk about how we listen to our bodies and in keeping our bodies well. And I want to introduce our illustrious panel of friends. We have Andy. Hey, Andy.
Hi, everyone.
Tell everybody what you do, Andy.
So I help people with Hangouts for business and just getting themselves out online using video.
Perfect. And Gail? Tell everybody what you do, Gail. She's on mute. Gail, you're on mute.
Oh, sorry. Thank you. So for work, I'm a professional writer and an author, and I love writing about parenting, self-love, and intuition, and how those topics are related, which is really the juicy part for me, the exciting part for me.
Great. And Kaylani? What do you do?
Hello, everyone. Good morning. This is Kalyani Roldan from Puerto Rico, and BeSimplyExtraordinary.com. I help moms and mompreneurs to claim, ignite, and thrive their simply extraordinary life.
Cool. And Miss Katrina?
There we go. I'm off mute now. Good morning, everyone. My name is Katrina. I actually am a creativity consultant and a writer, and I have a passion for helping people really move through those creative blocks so that they can find mindful ways to connect with creativity in their daily life.
Good. Sounds good to me. And Tracy?
Good morning, everybody. Tracy here. Cannot wait to get into this topic because our bodies tell us so much that can motivate us into great things. So I've got a Healthy You community here on Google+. I am a representative for Nerium International, all the while motivating people to reach their full potential. It's very fun.
Terrific. Thank you. And I am a life and business coach and a Superior Court mediator, and I'm all about listening as the kahuna tool, the kahuna sense of pretty much everything. I speak, I facilitate meetings, and I am the co-founder of a group of women's networking meetings, and I'm really happy to be here. And I love this topic because we can confuse things in our body if we don't know what we're listening to and for. And I think that there's something, a consciousness, a higher consciousness, that when we come from that consciousness, what we listen for in our body makes more and more sense. And I see that there's a question, a comment that Tracy has from our streamer, and I think it's probably going to be a really good one to get started. So, Tracy, you want to say what it is?
Yes, ma'am, and that's what I thought it would be a good one to get started with. It's Elaine, our wonderful laughter specialist. I love Elaine. Good morning. And before we say it and get in there, Chris Reinhardt is here. Of course, Sheila's out there. I can't see down who else has popped in, but Elaine asks, how does listening to the body change as you ID yourself more and more as eternal spirit and less as body, requiring defense, protection, and correction? Perhaps our panelists can address this. So we are talking in the green room about pulling spirit into our body, and that Elaine just broke the ice perfectly.
Perfect question. So I'm going to go down the line because it's so much easier. Tracy, you want to start since you're already on the screen?
Oh, okay. Let's see. How do we listen to our body change as you ID yourself? I just reread that. I think we were talking about it in the green room, and not that I got laughed off the stage, but everybody said they'd rather have a pizza. You know, your body is a temple. Your body is spiritual. It does want to be healthy and be happy. And so when we can, sometimes if we want to go for a walk in the morning, our head says, oh, but it rained last night, it's going to be muddy, and I really don't want to get out there and all of that gook. But your body says, but it's going to feel good. So, you know, that's the motivation. And if we take, for me, my walk in the morning is my walking meditation, because I have a hard time quieting down my brain. So to track that to Elaine's question, my body motivates me to get out there and do what I need to do, because I know that's going to feed my spirit and my soul. And yeah, it'd be easier to lay in bed, but that's just my laziness and my head talking. So if I can listen to my body and tap into, I want to get moving. You know, I have a thing that I do because I work online. 10 minutes out of every hour, I get up and move. And my body craves that movement, because when you're sitting, you know, your hips hurt, your knees hurt, your feet swell. You're just sitting in this place. And my body's on this pattern now. It knows when it's 10 minutes time to get up and jump around and move. So really listening to your body tell you to get up and move. What's the thing? A body in rest stays at rest. A body in motion wants to stay in motion. So listening to that part of it, for me, that's what I get to enjoy every day, when my body tells me what to do.
Okay, thank you. That was great. And what about you, Katrina? When we are spiritual, and I don't want to say more spiritual, because I don't know, I'm not sure if that's really the case. I think spiritual is spiritual, and the degree is the degree. So as you are spiritual, does it change how you listen to your body?
You know, I'd like to start off with just making a point about when I was 19, the things that I was paying attention to in my body were probably not the same things that I pay attention to today. It doesn't mean that I wasn't a connected person, but I just had different focus. I had different, you know, desires and things that I was, you know, wanting to do. Whereas now that I'm more connected to my spiritual path, and I realize how much work that it's sort of, not necessarily that it takes in terms of hard work, because sometimes it is, but it's really more that building that awareness with yourself and the commitment that it takes. I just didn't have that drive when I was 19 the way I do today. I think that over time, when you just become more committed to yourself, especially when you want to be more committed to expressing all creative aspects of yourself, and just being healthier helps you do that more effectively. I think that ultimately, just along your path, whether you identify yourself as spiritual or not, you're sort of moving in that space. It's just like, hey, do I still want the same things? What experiences have changed me and moved me in a direction that I want to be more in tune with my body, because I realize it's right. Like, it's telling me things that I don't necessarily know in my mind, but consistently it shows me, like Tracy was saying, when I do these things, I feel better. When I do these things, not so much. So I do believe that sort of evolves with just you getting older or evolving as a person when you grow and go through experiences.
Okay, that's a good point. So you're saying a maturity, not just a spirituality, but a maturity.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. All right, Kaylani, what about you? What do you think?
Thanks, Marilyn. I'm actually going to chime in there with Katrina, because I had a similar experience. It wasn't until, like, you know, maybe mid-20s, 25-ish, that I even learned about listening to my body. Prior to that, you're just being out.
We lost her. Okay.
For me,
Gail?
I was just being in the body and living life. And
Kaylani, we're losing you, so I'm going to...
Really?
Yeah, we're losing you. Yeah, we're losing you, so I'm going to ask Gail to come on. Gail,
okay. I'll come back in.
Okay. Gail, go ahead. What about you? What do you think?
A couple things I could say about that. I will echo one aspect that Katrina said in my own words, that as, you know, being aware of myself as a spiritual person, a spiritual being, I see how important it is to pay attention to my body, because as a spiritual being, I want to be healthy, I want to be present, and that of course, it includes being present to your body and what it needs. Our body is, it's like the biggest part of us that we have. But at the same time, as a spiritual being, I've also learned that I am not my body. Our body is such a big part of us, and we get so attached to our bodies. We think that our body is who we are. So if our body feels sick, we tend to automatically think, well, I'm sick if my body's sick. And so that's something that I've learned, that my body may be sick, but I am not sick.
That's pretty cool. That's an interesting perspective. So good, because that's why listening is so key. So, because listening breaks through the muckety yuck that says, I'm not sick, I'm just tired. Or I'm not sick, I'm emotionally tired today. My body may be dragging, but it's stemming from some emotional thing, or I need to rest. And those are the kinds of things that you want to open up to and listen for. So that's good. Andy, you might have a little different perspective, I don't know, as a man, but what would you say, and you are a deep thinker, so, and a wise kind of guy. So what do you think?
I thought I'd share a different perspective on this in terms of, I completely agree with what you're always saying, and it's great to have such a different perspective on things. When I think about listening, I think our body gives us subtle cues each and every day, and when we're in like busy times in life, we're rushing around, we're doing things. Much of the time, we could say we don't have the time to listen to our bodies. Yet we truly have the time if we take some time out and we just tune in. Because I think it's more about tuning into our body and understanding where we are, what we need our body to be, what we need to do with our body in order to be healthy. Like even the subtle cues when you're out in the middle of the blistering heat, when you need to take water, just small minor things. And I think many of us, when we're in times when it's so busy, we don't take care of those subtle cues. So as soon as we pick up on those subtle cues, we can make those changes, and those are the things that will prevent us, I believe, from having to make more difficult choices along the way. So.
Yeah, I think those subtle cues are kind of interesting because sometimes you don't hear them. Several years ago, my husband said something really, really smart, and I was doing what I thought was all the right thing. Emotionally, and I was working, and I felt happy, and I was doing all these things, but my body started to hurt, and I could not figure out why my body was hurting because I felt good. And he said to me, Marilyn, when you're doing the right things for yourself, you're still creating an energy. Just like when you're not doing the right things for yourself, you're creating an energy. But if you don't use the energy you're creating, good energy will hurt you just like unhealthy negative energy will. You have to release the energy that your body is producing, or it will store up, and you'll have. You could have a neck ache when you're doing good things, just like you are when you're not doing good things. So being physical, using up the energy that you create is going to be just as important. And that made all the difference in the world to me. That was like one huge aha. So I want to just mention that as well. So, you could be thinking about this along the way that, things are happy and you're doing great, but you're sitting at your computer all day and you're starting to hurt. Well, that's a sign that you need to extend that energy, get it out, use it up, do something with it. So I think that's important. And I'm very curious to hear from all of you. What are some of those subtle cues that you hear? When you're supposed to have more water. It's not always listening to being thirsty. What do you listen to and for to know that you need more water or that you need more rest? I don't sleep great. So I have to purposefully lie down and rest because I'm not a great sleeper. I can't wait till I'm tired because I'm not going to be so tired all the time. So what do you do? How do you listen to those cues, and what are they for each of you? Because I think I would like to know what you all do that makes a difference for yourself, because you're very powerful women and men, and you can't just wait for the, to fall off your feet. So let me start back with Tracy. What do you do? What are those subtleties for you, and how do you handle it?
Before I get into that, Chris asked that exact question. She said I might be jumping ahead, but now we've gotten to it in the conversation. How do you stop and really listen to what your body's saying? How do we hear it rather than try to explain away what we're feeling? And for me, if I can just take my deep breaths, and usually it starts with a feeling of anxiety because of whatever I'm thinking or the action I'm doing, or I'm frustrated with work, or somebody, whatever the daily work frustrations are. And before I let my head go cuckoo, I take my deep breaths and really do a check-in from toe to head and see what is going to break this feeling. And oftentimes the break of the feeling is activity. Get up and walk away. And I know a lot of people who have sleep issues. I was a severe insomniac for many, many, many years, and I had to, like you do, force myself to sleep. And there's brain exercises to close your brain down and counting the sheep and all of that craziness, but my body told me all that time that I was never tired. But I know my thinking process, my spiritual journey, all of that was lacking when I thought I was listening to my body saying, I'm not tired, you can go another 10 hours, girlfriend. And you just really can't. So sometimes it's a conversation between your brain and your body. And if we can just remember to tap into, to do a check. I mean, has everybody ever done that? You're sitting in your chair, or for me it's my walking, and I want to feel my toes. I want to feel the heel of my foot. I want to feel my ankle move, my knees move, my hips move, my heart expand. I've been working with George Green about total body breathing, and it's been amazing. Like 6 days in a row, really bringing that body breath into your shoulders and your heart, and having your whole, chest carriage expand, so you can really touch into listening to, and then be quiet and still and say, okay, what are you telling me? Okay, that foot is sore, that ankle's a little weird. My muscles and my thighs feel great because I did 50 squats today. Remember those good messages that your body's telling you, so that you'll get the motivation to do it again tomorrow. So I think it's a check-in, and then listening to the responses of your body. What do you guys think?
Katrina, what about you? What do you?
Yeah, I would absolutely agree with that. I did not have the best model of self-care because my mom kind of runs herself ragged. So I grew up thinking that that's what you do. You just push yourself until you can't push yourself anymore. And then I got into a car accident, and that sort of forced me into a position where I was like, chiropractor, that'd probably be a good idea because I'm not feeling so great. And figuring out from there how to create my own model of self-care, and realizing at that point how much I had sort of been ignoring what my body was telling me when I needed to rest. So for me, my journey started with that, sort of like a jarring experience, but then I also started doing yoga, and I found that the more I got into just dabbling around with yoga, then that led me to meditation, and that led me to other avenues of just being able to quiet my mind enough to listen, because I also have that same sense. Because I'm very highly empathic, I pick up a lot of energy, so a lot of times I didn't know whose energy was mine, if this energy is mine or if it was someone else's. So even though I am a extrovert when I'm around people, I really do need that introvert time, and honoring that. For a lot of years I didn't honor that about myself. especially once I got into college, because everyone's around you all the time. It's sort of like, you know, you grow up and you have your patterns and things that you do that make you feel good, and then you kind of grow into these situations where you adapt and sort of get into a group, and I sort of had to relearn again, like, who am I in a big group when I'm around people all the time? Because before I could take time to myself and sort of hide in my books, because that's what I used to do. I used to read a lot. So it's sort of knowing those subtle cues, but then also realizing over time that they're going to change, and that it's important to sort of check in on a regular basis and listen in those subtle ways, because it isn't going to sound the same all the time.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting because there's been a couple of points brought up by Tracy and Katrina that I want to just kind of shine a little light on. You know, Katrina was talking about being intuitive and being able to pick up energetically other people's stuff. And it's very important to recognize that, because many of us do that. And we get sensory overload. And that kind of ties in a little bit with what Tracy said earlier, is that we don't just listen to we listen to the here and now, but we also have to listen to the pre-here and now, those subtleties and the things that occur before the subtleties, so that we know and it's about knowing ourselves so well, listening to ourselves and knowing it so well, that we do understand when we're picking up, we walk into a room and we walk in happy and we're picking up somebody's stuff as soon as we walk in, and we can feel it. We understand it and we feel it, and we're listening for that kind of thing, so that we can say to ourselves, that's not mine. Let me listen back to myself so that I'm not picking up, because there's a lot of, you know, you think about it, there's a lot of, you know, technology out here. There's a lot of computer wires. There's a lot of sensory things going on. And we can pick all that up. And we have to not do that. We have to be able to listen to ourselves enough to know who we are, so we reject that stuff, because that stuff can hurt us. So this is really, really important. That's the pre-stuff. It's not just listening to our body. It's listening to everything. The feeling, as Tracy said earlier, it's listening to everything to prepare us to be able to listen to some of those subtleties, and when we're just plain thirsty and tired, and those are obvious. So this is really important. Kaylani, are you back connected?
I'm here. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yes.
Awesome.
So what do you
So
said?
let me just pick a little bit of what I was saying and then pick up on what we're talking about now. I first learned to listen to my body because I needed to for health reasons. So growing up to my early 20s, I had a lot of health challenges. So at one point, I realized from, you know, reaching out, I guess it goes back to that energetic force where you put a message to the universe that says, okay, something's going on with my body. I need to know how to fix it. So it started bringing things into my path to learn how to listen to my body for health. That caused me to want to change what I was eating. And then a couple more years down the line, I said, okay, I'm changing my eating. Now I want to be more, I started understanding the emotional connection. Growing up in an alcoholic home, it helped me realize that not only was that a big portion of what was going on in my body, in addition to the food that was creating the health, I wanted to grow my spirituality and understand, you know, how this connection is what drives our body every day. Because our physical body is responding to what we're putting in it, what we're feeding it or not feeding it spiritually. And it just became this quest. So then, you know, to answer the question of how do I listen to the subtle cues? Well, over the years, I listened to, okay, what am I feeling at this moment when any kind of, you know, ache or pain would come up, right? Or let's say I'm having an emotional breakdown as a mom. You know, we have lots of those over the years when our kids are little, where we're learning the journey. And then it became about, okay, how can I switch this so I don't have to necessarily listen to subtle cues and then be reactive in terms of, okay, now let me find a solution? I turned it into a practice. because what I got really clear about is that how I nurture my body every day, whether that's what I'm eating, whether that's giving it the air that it needs, whether that's taking time for meditation, all of those things, they're what carry my body through the whole day. So how do I want to start every day? And I turned it into a more of a practice, so that I didn't find myself having to say, okay, now I got to stop and listen because something's going on and I need to resolve it. I want to eliminate as much of that stuff as I can, and growing to a place of listening and saying, I just want to keep adding more because I'm experiencing the results of what this is doing, and I'm feeling better emotionally, spiritually, physically, connected to the planet, the earth, and the animals more and more every day. What can I keep seeking out? And that brings you into yogas and Reikis and all those things that people think are alternative. They're really the actual norms. It's just that somehow we got too far away from them. Now we're all coming back.
Yeah, those are great points, Kaylani. And I just have to say, she looks like Barbara Streisand today. I don't know if anybody else thought that way. Just you look like Barbara Streisand today. Barbara's in the house.
Thank you. Yeah.
That's really good. It's listening is an opening, and so part of listening to the body is listening for these things that are going to serve us, like yoga, like being in a group like this and listening to what people are using and doing for their body that is, feels good to them. Like last week, Elaine was talking about laughter, all of those things. So you don't just listen. We're not just listening to the body. We're listening to everything that goes around us that supports the body. So that's great. Gail.
How did you know I wanted to say something? You picked up my energy, right?
I'm listening, yeah.
Well, I just wanted to remind everybody or say again, it's something that I think we know, so we all take it for granted, but how the mind and body and spirit are connected. I mean, they are so deeply connected, and I think a lot of us could tend to say, oh, yeah, I know that, and then just go on. But it is so true that our body, it's really like the barometer for everything else that's going on. And I actually had a good experience of living in a yoga ashram for 2 years. I was living in Manhattan at the time in New York, and I just picked myself up, sublet my apartment, and moved into this yoga ashram and focused 2 years on learning yoga and meditation. And the body is so connected to that. And that was a while ago, and I've moved on to other things now. And it's in relation to stress, actually, is the other point that I want to make, that it's so easy to be so stressed these days. Our lives are really so busy, and I'll just speak for myself, that I can get really stressed out. And yoga helps, meditation helps, paying attention to my body really helps. And I've been doing this new thing lately. It's a little strange, but I've actually decided to just trust it and do it. That I've been trying to pay attention to my stress. Like, what does my body need if I'm really stressed about something? Like, just something happened just last night and this morning where I was having this conversation with my co-author for my book that's coming out in October, and our publicist. And we were the three of us having this conversation, mostly in emails, but Brandy, my co-author, and I, we also had a hangout about it. And I don't know, it's just really weird, but I have some kind of disconnect going on. I don't know if it's me or them, but it's like I'm missing something. We're trying to decide about what to do about something, and it's like, I don't know what, like I said, something is just like disconnecting with me. And this morning I felt myself getting like really stressed out about this, And so I've been doing this thing, been doing it for the last couple of weeks. I don't know, it just came to me, where when I feel that I'm getting stressed, going for meditating, all of a sudden that just wasn't doing the trick. It just seemed like, well, that's not what I need right now. And so I was paying attention to what I need, and I just trusted. And I found myself listening to what I needed to do, and I went into the bathroom, I closed the door, I turned on the water to the bathtub because I didn't want anybody to hear me, and I just sort of like emoted these sounds. It was like I let the stress come out of my body in whatever way it had to come out, and I was doing all these like crazy things, and I decided I wasn't going to judge it. I said, this is really interesting, you know, like what do I need to do now? What does my body actually need to do? And I just let it rip. I mean, I just did it. I would never do this in front of another person ever because it was kind of crazy. But you know what? It's like I got it out of me. And it's like then I was just like, oh, I could relax. And it was a new thing, you know, just letting that tension get out of my body in a really different way than I ever did before. It worked.
Yeah. You know, when you were just talking, I just had a vision of, like, even just dancing. You know, when you think about listening to your body, you know, and just kind of like going with the flow of music, you know, and doing things like that is also listening to your body, not just feeling tired or listening to you know, that you're hungry, but it's also listening to its power. You know, how much faster can it walk?
Oh, that's so true. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
You know, who said that? Who said that, Gail?
Yeah, I was just going to say, because I actually used to be a dancer, and so I'm so connected with what you were saying that, like, as a dancer, it's like you just, like, feel this expression that you have inside, and you express it through your body, you know? You express it through movement. I mean, it's just it's an incredible thing. Like, sometimes when because I used to be a dancer, I just sort of, like, have that in me, and I could watch a dance performance, and I will watch the dancer doing what they're doing, and as they're dancing, I will feel it in my body, like what they must be feeling. It's like I can feel it. It's an amazing thing, but I have to say, like, when I was in the bathroom and doing all this crazy stuff, it was almost like, it seemed like the opposite of dancing, but in a way it really wasn't. In a way it was just a different dance.
Yeah. You know, it's interesting because, you know, when I think about doing this, I was thinking about more about health, but, you know, being wellness, well-being. But, you know, now that we're getting into this other part, it is, you know, it's interesting because here I'm sitting here and I'm thinking about listening to my body to use it. You know, and I've started to walk more now, and I'm walking faster. I'm listening to my body being able to do that and not listening to the fear of, oh, I'm going to break a leg. I'm listening because my body feels stronger. I can listen to my body climbing stairs, and my legs seem stronger. You know, I can listen to it. And I think that's another thing, you know, to pay attention to, and in our awareness is listening to how well we can perform, and to stretch that. And Katrina, for some reason, I see you smiling. Is that because you have something to say to this, or you're just a smiley lady?
I'm a smiley lady. We're having a silly little chat over here. I'm glad Tracy's unfrozen. She looked frozen for a long time, so I wanted to make sure she was actually moving. She didn't turn into a wax figure. I thought maybe she'd turn to wax without me knowing.
Yeah, so is she listening to the fact she's cold?
I am cold. The sun's finally coming out, but I am cold this morning.
Are
Sorry.
You? I can feel that. So you're feeling cold, Tracy?
Well, we got a tremendous amount of rain last night. It was incredibly kind of damp, which we're not used to in New Mexico, and then we had sort of a couple of traumas on the ranch I won't get into, and so we are up early handling those traumas, and I was just kind of chilled to the bone, as Grandma used to say. So it was trying to not speedily, you know, heat up my body, but just get in a warm shower and then get all cuddled up. I've got my wool slippers on, I've got sweatpants on, I've got a sweat turtleneck on, and I know it's the, you know, end of July, but here I am listening to my body telling me to get myself warm. But there you go.
Yeah, but and I don't know what it is, but there's something else about that. because, when you get chilled to the bone, or, when there's something going on in your life and you listen, I mean, that's a huge thing about some kind of a fear or some kind of thing that happens to you, and you listen your body through it and paying attention and self-care. So I think there's something about that as well. But this freedom to be able to listen to your body, to be able to dance in the middle of nowhere, to be able to move in the middle of nowhere, to be able to not care what anybody says, to be able to even wear the clothing you want to wear without caring that it looks great or not. That too is listening to your body, I think.
I wanted to bring up a few points that Katrina mentioned as well. She spoke about introvert and extrovert, and I think that plays an interesting part in terms of listening as well, because I think prior to listening, in some respects, it's understanding ourselves, and once we can understand ourselves, we can understand how we deal in certain situations, because the energy affects our whole body, and when energy affects our body, it affects our health as well. So looking at introvert and extroverts love to be in large groups, whereas introverts like to be in smaller groups. So when we listen in those situations, we can adapt and respond to those environments so that we can have better health in that respect as well. I remember looking at our main human drivers as well, because what drives us each and every day will give us the passion and energy and the motivation to do what we want to do and what we love to do. So some of the main drivers that I look at was main six human drivers was love, growth, contribution, certainty, and uncertainty. And I can't remember the other one. I was writing it down as we were going through it. But when you understand your main drivers, we understand who we are, what we're all about, and how we can deliver what we can to the world. So I think it's understanding ourselves so that we can listen to our body much more effectively to adapt and respond. So I thought I'd just add that. So
that's a really good point, and thank you very much for listening to that point of what Katrina said, because you're giving yourself a message. So introverts might walk into a room, kind of slower, quieter. They're sending a message of that same thing, of maybe fear, maybe overwhelm, whatever it is, to your body. And whereas an extrovert's going to walk into the room louder and more robust, and that sends a message to your body. As well as when you see somebody walk into a room, listening to our body is one thing, and listening to the body of somebody else walk into a room tells you something, sends a message of who they are. So that's a really, 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 really good point. And those triggers, that's excellent. Thank you very much for that. So right now, from where we are there any comments, Tracy, that we want to pay attention to, that we want to talk about on the chat?
Chris said goodbye a little while ago. She's got to leave this great conversation. Wonderful topic, Marilyn. Looking forward to seeing you next week. So bye, Chris, if you're not already gone, or if you watch the replay. And then I can't find the original post from Elaine, but she did have a quick comment before about sleep deprivation, and she gave us a comment that Adrian Huffington of Huffington Post warns of sleep deprivation on the work and balanced life, and told how a major health crisis of 3 years made her re-examine how she was relating to her sleep. So all very important topics. And Sheila's got a comment out there: walking, dancing, shouting, yoga, body movement of any kind, all excellent ways to release stress. So, just kind of on this whole listening to our body when we feel that to get up and take some action. But I wanted to bring up a point about what you just said. you know, when you walk into a social situation, introvert or extrovert, and you get over that initial thing, and you're doing these meet and greets, and you're talking to people, or at your Christmas party or your holiday office party or whatever, and you know, you resonate with one person more than you resonate with another person. And although I don't own a TV, I'm a huge NCIS fan. And Leroy Jethro Gibbs is famous for his gut. You know, what is your gut telling you? So I did a little research getting ready for the show. You know, what is going on in our guts when we have that gut feeling? You know, it's that release of the endorphins for a good feeling, the fear, you know, for a bad feeling. You know, what's happening, and do we often listen to our guts when we, and I know that sounds kind of weird, but listen to our guts when we meet a new person or we get a bad feeling about this situation. You know, our body is telling us, whoa, good, whoa, bad. So I just wanted to see what everybody thought about that whole gut feeling concept. What's your gut telling you?
I'll jump in here. I would say it's very powerful, it's very true, and trust it, and trust yourself with it. You know, I think that, Marilyn, you had said something before that I wanted to just expand upon really quickly. You were talking about your body, and I think we need to, our bodies can be trusted. And I think that's so important to remember.
Yeah, I wanted to jump in here really quick, Tracy, and to comment on what you were saying, and I would agree with that. For me, in my experience, it's partly the gut, it's just partly the generally how they feel to me, but a lot of times it's voice. And I've had a couple different experiences where initially someone's voice didn't really resonate with me very well, and then, you know, we eventually got to know each other and, you know, became friends or acquaintances, whatever. And down the line, we actually eventually ended up drifting apart for some reason, because initially that voice resonance wasn't there for me, and I don't know why voice is stronger for me sometimes. Maybe, I don't know if it's stronger than some of the other energy things that I feel, but I find that it's got to be voice for me. If someone's voice resonates with me when I'm speaking with them, that, I think, tells a lot for me, personally.
Interesting. Yeah, I know when lots of times when I'm hearing bass music, like drumming, something, I vibrate to it. I can feel it in my body. There's no question. If I'm, or on the radio, if you turn it, you know, you turn the bass up more in the car, and the car starts, I can feel it. My body is telling me something. Sometimes it's comfortable, and sometimes it's not. Sometimes I like it, sometimes I don't, and it's not always going to be the same thing. But I love, Tracy, I love the question of intuition and listening to our body, because, you know, when we started this, I was thinking more along the lines of just like health. But really, when you know, this is a whole nother, you know, area that we love to talk about, is because it's a part of the body. That's listening to the body. I mean, greasy palms. I mean, what does a greasy palm mean? You know, what does it mean when, you know, you get a chill? You know, all of these things we want to listen to. We don't have the answer for it necessarily, but maybe we do. And maybe it's a combination of, you know, something that happened yesterday and something that happened the day before, and maybe it's about something that's going to happen, but you get a greasy palm. Slow down, pay attention. Tracy, you got another question?
Mike Fountain just came in, so I wanted us all to say hi, because he's going to bring some probably fun and funky insight into this whole spidey sense, goosebumps, gut feeling thing, because he is so in tune. And just Elaine's got another comment about laughter and how important that is. And I know she can go into all the biochemical details of what laughter does to your body, but she was on here a couple of weeks ago. I forget this is a weekly. And, you know, just changing your mood and changing your energy. But I like the goosebumps, because I never know, oftentimes, I don't say never, but oftentimes I'm not quite sure if they goosebump out for a good thing or goosebump out for a bad thing, or, you know, the hairs on the back of your neck stand up when somebody says something, and is that energy and excitement to join the club, or is that, whoa, this feels weird, let me step back for a minute? So how do we read those? What do you guys think?
I would say.
Anybody?
I'm sorry. I was just going to pop in.
No, I was just saying, who wants to? Okay,
Yeah,
that's a very good question.
Yeah, the more that you tune in and kind of have that process or that practice that Kaylani was talking about earlier, I feel that you get more in tune with what those signals are for you. So you're more familiar with, like, hey, these are, I've noticed that when I'm grounded and I'm really clear, this is goosebumps more often than not means this or connects with this, for example. Right, just like I was saying before with the voice, I've seen it happen a couple times now where a person's voice initially doesn't resonate with me and those relationships don't end up lasting. So it was kind of an interesting tool, but now I know it's a tool. And then I'll let other people jump in because I'm sure they have things that they'd like to share too.
Right. I want to just say that Mike and I had a lovely hangout yesterday. And he told me anytime he shows up, he's coming full force ahead, direct, and he ain't holding back. So it's nice to know Mike's in the comments, and I'm happy to have you. You know, when you were talking about laughter, many, 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 many years ago, when I was in the process of trying to make my decision of whether or not I would separate from my husband at the time, I didn't know what to do. I just absolutely did not have an answer. I didn't know what to do. And I went to California with a friend, and we were in the dressing room at Marshall, and something happened, and I started to laugh, like uncontrollably laugh. And in that moment, I realized my decision, because I realized in no time that it had been so long, because I love to laugh, it had been so long since I had laughed that I forgot that I hadn't laughed in a long time. And then I went from laughter to crying in a matter of seconds because my decision was made. And it was because of laughter that I realized I needed to leave that marriage because I wasn't laughing anymore. That's how powerful. And these things that come to us, there's a saying that emotion travels faster than thought. So the emotion's going to come, and then sometimes we have to process it and realize what it is. But our body's going to send these messages. And sometimes it is just mind over matter. We cannot control it. It's just going to come and flow, and we just got to be ready there with a bucket. So, Tracy, any other comments out there? Oh.
I think we're good. Elaine says, oh, hold on, let me get the eyeball working. I keep forgetting about that. Good point, Andy and Katrina. Our own introvert or extrovert tendencies can play a part in how we are listening to our body while we are in different peopled environments. That's a good word, peopled environments. So, yeah, we've just got a good conversation going. So, I'd like to hear Andy talk about spidey senses and goosebumps, because he's, you know, the I don't know, a hypnotherapist of the group, and I always like to get it into his brain pattern. So, what are your spidey senses telling you, Andy?
Well, I was going to talk about. I had an experience last year, and it was like prior to the experience, I had these gut feelings. I spoke to a few friends, and I was contemplating. On one hand, should I do it? On another hand, should I do it? Should I do this? And I decided to take the opportunity and go for it. And my gut instinct read to be true completely. And it wasn't the best experience, but it was definitely a learning. So it's amazing how much our gut does tell us and our intuition tells us. And I think, like Marilyn said as well, like emotions speak before our thoughts sometimes, and we need to listen to our emotions before we think about our thoughts. But yeah, it's interesting. Definitely, gut plays a huge part in I believe making choices. So I'd say it's key to listen to our gut, because we'll end up making better choices in life.
And you know, you can take one word like nervous, and say, instead of saying I'm nervous now, you can replace it with the word exciting. And it could feel very much the same. And so the choices we make in how we identify, sometimes we have to, we think it's the feeling that's coming, and somebody was saying it earlier, could be a good thing. What are the goosebumps for? Is it a good thing or not a good thing? And really taking the time to honor ourselves so much, so much, that we listen and we pay attention and we don't just brush it off, but that we listen and we say, okay, what is this? If we're having the hair stand on our neck, or we're having chills, or we're having goosebumps, or we're having fluttering, we owe it to ourselves. We are great enough. And we owe it to ourselves to listen, to figure out what is it that what are we telling ourselves? Or what is the universe sharing with us? What's that message? Because the messages are going to come from all different places and in all different ways. So if it's coming through us, it must be something we really need to pay attention to and really need to listen to. So we are so important that we, and I, going to pay attention even more. So I know that time is coming almost to an end. Almost, not quite, almost. So I know, Kaylani, you've been a little bit quiet lately, in the last few minutes. So I want to come to you. Do you have anything else to add to what we've been talking about?
I definitely do. A couple of points I want to touch on. For me, listening to my gut is really all about just the energy. What's the energy that I'm feeling at any moment? Whether I'm, feeling like an introvert when I go into a room of lots of people, how do I feel? Or whether, like Andy was talking about, when you got to make a decision on something, if we just start tuning in and listening to ourselves more, and the key word here is trusting ourselves. I think as a whole, our society has taught us to stop trusting ourselves and start looking outside all the time for all the answers. And I believe we have everything we need. And Marilyn, you mentioned a couple times about that your intention for this whole hangout was about listening to our bodies for health. And something that kept popping up for me is that all of these things that we actually have talked about on here, they play an essential key role in our health. Our health really is just not about, am I moving my body? Am I feeding my body what it needs? It's all of that stuff that goes together that creates the health of our body. And I believe that we all know what our body needs. And if we just give it the essentials every day, it's going to function really well for us. And that includes our spirit, our mind. Everything comes into play, like Gail was talking about. It's all interconnected. I've learned this over the years. I learn it more every single day, every time something new comes into my path, that what you're thinking, what you're feeling, and how you're taking action, they're so interconnected. There's no way to not be connected in those three together.
Yep, perfect. And, so everything helps our body heal and be strong. Everything comes together. That's where the word holistic comes in. Can't separate any of it. It's all connected. So, Kaylani, that was perfect. Gail, any advice from you and in summing up?
Any advice? Can you come back to me?
Sure.
Thanks.
Katrina, any advice in summing up for you? Any words of wisdom?
I would definitely echo what Kailani said about trust, because and also what Andy was saying, when you're in making those big decisions, can you trust yourself in the moment to move forward and do that? So walking forward in that trust, can you be in the moment and experience it, and regardless of how it turns out, realize that you were guided properly in the moment? Because I think sometimes what we do is we take on an experience or try something and it doesn't necessarily match the expectations that we had for it. So then we kind of start building some negative feelings towards that, either judgment or, what's some other good ones? Disappointment. There's a lot of those, and those actually have a very strong physical effect on the health of your body if you're sort of ruminating in those types of emotions versus just trusting that you went with your gut in the moment, you're meant to have that experience, and really just accepting it and moving forward and figuring out, okay, well, what do I want to do next? Where's my body leading me towards health next?
Exactly. Perfect. Love that. What about you, Tracy?
Oh, lots to think about. I'm going to toss a couple of comments up as I'm thinking. And when Andy spoke, Mike Fountain put up there, my spidey senses were working overtime for you. Yeah, I just love Mike. Elaine pops in and says, laughter / crying are so closely linked for stress relief. And think about it, when sobbing or laughing heartily, you get lots of stale air out. So stale air is good. And this is, I just love George. It kind of moves into Andy's six, I can't remember what he called them, 6 stages or 6 powers or 6 pillars. Your body will always reflect and tell you whether or not you are in alignment with your highest outcomes, period. For me, most powerful question to ask based on what I'm feeling in my body is, am I moving toward my outcome in this moment, or am I moving, and it's ... because you can only have so many characters, so I'm guessing he's saying, or am I moving away? And so I think these gut feelings, these spidey senses, these, hair tingling, arm chills, if you're getting that feeling and you've done Andy's pillars, or you've made your dream wall, or your purpose on the planet is what's happening to you in your body at whatever situation, moving you towards your goal or away from your goal, and true alignment with what your purpose is. Hopefully by now, at our stages of life, we've all figured out what our purpose is here, and maybe listening to those gut feelings can give us a barometer and a check-in. Is this going towards or away from what my purpose in life is? And then obviously go with your spidey senses. It's fun.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Andy, what about you?
I guess I would completely agree with Kalani and Katrina about trust. Trust is the most important thing. When it comes to those big decisions, it's important to trust your gut. But what I'd also say is, don't worry if you don't trust your gut, because you'll always get a learning experience. And that's me.
That's great. That's great. That's a good one. And I think I would, while Tracy was talking, while Andy was talking, something just popped into my head, and it was, if we're not listening if we're only listening to part of us. It just doesn't happen. You can't be listening to just your body. You've got to be, that's not listening. We have to be listening to everything. That's the only way to listen. So, and I think that's, how I would end. I would just say that in order to really be listening, you got to be listening to everything as much as you can at one time. And then they all just kind of come together and they begin to make sense. So, I want to thank everybody that's been here today. This has been great. And I want to thank everybody that's been listening out there and commenting. And, for those of you that are going to be tuning in to the archive of this, we want to thank you for doing that as well. That listening is so important that you found the time to come no matter when you came. I mean, because I like to say, better late than never. And so we're going to be back here next week, and we're going to have another really great topic. I don't know what it is yet, unless somebody out in our room here has just some kind of great idea that you think would be wonderful for next week. And we're going to talk about that a little bit when we kind of close down the hangout. But if anybody has a great idea and you want us to kind of go into it more with listening, because that's what we do, then we would love to hear from you. Just let that be known on the chat. on the comment stream. We'd love to hear that if you have a particular topic and you think it would be great for us to expose. We'd love to hear that. And I want to thank Sheila particularly and Elaine for being out there on that comment and stirring it up, because that's just spreading this whole notion so far. And so anybody have a final anything in our green room? Anybody?
Yeah, I'll say something, just bouncing off of what you said before, Marilyn, that yes, we have to listen to all the parts of us, but don't forget to listen to your body.
Yep. Well, yeah, and all the parts are going to be part of that body. So, yeah, got to listen to everything, and the body's going to tell you something maybe before something else will. So, with that, I'm going to say thank you all for being here once again. We'll be here next week, and have a wonderful listening week. And take care. Bye.
Bye.